Hi guys, I'm with Jason BIELER to talk about the album of the Baron from Bielski Orchestra, Postcards from the Asylum. So thank you, Jason, for having us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Postcards from the Asylum. Why this title? Is the Baron from Bielski is in an asylum? And what what inspired you to write this album?
There are those who think I should be in an asylum. So this one kind of it snuck up on me. I didn't realize it until the end of the process, like how dark and kind of twisted a lot of the lyrical content got. Is only when I was kind of proofreading it at the end, and I was
Mhm.
making my wife read the record, so I didn't, have these horrible mistakes. She was like, you have problems that you should probably talk to somebody about this stuff because it's like really. So the record kind of follows the arc of different types of mental instability, over
Mhm.
time. So it's not a concept record in the classic sense of like, the Who Tommy, where there's like one story.
Mhm.
But I think it kind of starts to follow this kind of, if you're looking for more to get into it a little deeper,
Yeah.
you'll start to see that there is a thread that runs through it. And I have mental issues, I guess. I found out when I finished the record.
Okay. Okay. And for songs for the apocalypse, you said that everything were done remotely because of the COVID, included the guest appearance. For this one, did you work in a normal way, or did you take some habits from the COVID period?
Um, I worked pretty similar to the last record, and it's something that I find for me works really, really well because these musicians I've been so blessed to work with are brilliant, and me not being around them is perfect for them. They get to like hear the music in their own studios,
Okay.
process it how they think it should be. And when you're in a studio with a band, even the slightest bit of body language, like like if you're working on a part and the other guy's like, you're like, and so you never really fully get to realize your creativity because there's always someone there like, oh, could you, maybe you should. So these musicians were able to totally develop their vision without interruption, without interference from me, which is obviously a good thing. And I get the best out of them, I think, because they really can present. Then when they present me their ideas, they're fully realized. They've gone through all the little changes and without someone over their shoulder. And I mean, the whole thing is I've been lucky to pick brilliant musicians. So I mean, Marco Miniman as a drummer is about as good as a drummer can be. I mean, Andy Blacksugar is a brilliant guitar player. Ryo Akamoto from Spock's Beard. These are brilliant musicians. So they're not going to give you back something that's like, bad. So,
Mhm.
and having them be involved with the records, I think gives a lot of depth and a lot of, like it just feels like you can kind of sink into the records more because there's more than one singular vision. There's other people contributing and bringing life to the music. And so for me, this has worked out really, really well. And knowing how much of a pain in the ass I am to work with, it's probably delightful for them. They're probably, this is the greatest thing ever.
Okay. And you said, yeah, you are a fantastic musician. How did you choose them? And it was hard to convince them to work with you?
I've been, like I said, I feel like I don't know whether like something's happening to me and no one's telling me because everybody's been so nice. And these are all musicians that I've loved. So Devin Townsend on the last record, and Bumblefoot, and the list. Todd Kearns is on the new one from Slash's band. They're just brilliant musicians that I've respected, and Butch Walker, who I've loved. We've known each other forever, and I think initially probably COVID helped in that sense where everyone was home and bored. So when I initially reached out, everyone was like, yeah, anything to do something, it would be great. Um, but they've all contributed and been so cool to me and generous. That yeah, I mean, it's not. It's kind of like I write these songs and then it's just like, oh, that would let me send that to Devin. Let me send that to Marco. I mean, Marco specifically on this, right? He plays on Flying Monkeys,
Hmm.
and he's such a brilliant drummer, and he comes from that kind of Frank Zappa, being able to read the black, and obviously he plays with Guthrie Govan. He's, I mean, probably the greatest guitar player alive today. So it was really fun to kind of work with him in that context. Just my direction to him was like, don't hold back. Like normally when you're working with musicians, like don't overplay, don't go too crazy. With this one, I was like, just go berserk, and he was like, this is great. He just so it's been a lot of fun and inspirational, to me, just to get them to say yes and hear what they do.
You said have a lot of fun. I just saw Devin Townsend yesterday on stage in Paris, and he began the concert with, "Okay, let's have fun," and it's what we had.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he's so. I mean, obviously, the funny thing is, I met Devin in like '91 or
Yeah.
'92. So even before, I was in a band called Saigon Kick, and we played in Vancouver. And he was there,
Oh.
so we were becoming friends via social media.
Mm-mm-mm.
And I have such obviously respect for him. And I think while we're different, I mean, I think we subscribe to the same no rules. Music should go in any direction as long as it comes from your heart. It's to me, it's boring when someone's just trying to be tricky or diverse, or it's like, okay, great, you can play banjo, but you know, but Devin really pursues whatever his heart tells him to go after musically, and even in the face of having massive success with something heavy, he'll come back with something ambient, knowing that it's going to throw his bass and that it's not going to be the easy path, but he just always manages to challenge himself. And I think the fans wind up, even if they don't get it initially, they come back years later, go, oh my God, that really was a brilliant record he did, and then so I hope to kind of walk a similar path in that sense, where I want the records to kind of have depth, and maybe not everything makes sense at once, but like my favorite records years later, like bringing up, I'm wearing a David Bowie shirt, so like David Bowie, when I was a kid, there was the things I loved,
Yeah.
and then he would release like the Let's Dance record, and I was like, oh, I don't know, I don't get this. It's not the David Bowie. But now it's like one of my favorite Bowie records, because it's like sometimes people release records that you're not ready for
Yeah,
as a
absolutely.
human being, and you get there eventually, and they become your favorite things in
Mm-mm-mm.
time. So,
Yeah,
you know,
that's true. Okay. And is there anyone you dream to work with?
I mean, I've been pretty lucky so far, and I've kind of avoided that dream scenario because, like, I have perfect relationships with my heroes,
Hmm.
like Prince and David Bowie and Freddie Mercury and Perry Farrell and Tom Waits, because I've never tarnished that with meeting them and them meeting me and it not being great. So we've always had this perfect relationship. So I would hate to be one egotistical enough to go, what Prince could use is me, or what David Bowie could have really helped. And those relationships always maintain this perfect memory for me, untarnished by either me saying something wrong or not being right. It's so I don't ever go to the hero level, but there's tons of musicians that I think are brilliant and that I'm open to collaborating with. But I like to keep it more within my universe of not the celestial greatness of the Beatles and those guys. It's like
Yeah.
that. It's too much for my brain to even think about.
Okay. Okay. I saw on YouTube that the song Human Head was released in 2021.
Mhm.
Uh, so almost 2 years ago. How long did it take to write and to record the album? Or is it you had too much materials for the previous one? Why did the song was so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think initially I didn't want to like just disappear and not release anything again, because it seems like everybody releases records now every 15 minutes. So I knew that if I just took a 2-year period, I didn't, we had such great start, and I was so lucky to have, most people in my position don't get a second shot, or like, people paying attention for a second time. So I knew that Songs for the Apocalypse had at least laid a really nice groundwork. So I wanted to keep, doing this. And that song came out and I really felt good about it. And then as this record was coming together, because of the records are so diverse, there's multiple songs, but I don't want them all to be so. There could be 10 heavier songs, but I don't want to have that on one record. So I'm mixing and matching, and then also because the nature of how people pay attention, I just felt like Human Head was too good to just not include. I didn't want to leave it behind,
Yeah.
in its own thing. So I thought, and I also felt it closed the record so well.
Mhm.
Like it's such a eerie, haunting kind of lyric, and um, so yeah, I mean, I wanted to bring that one along. I didn't want to leave that one back in the middle of, in this island between the two records by itself. I felt like.
Okay. Okay. So if we go a little bit more into details of some songs, can you tell us a little more about Flying Monkey?
I don't even know what I do, like, or how I do or why I do what I do. It's this weird thing that happens when I write, like it comes to me like in a, almost like a whole vision at one
Mhm.
time. The music, the lyrics,
Okay.
even like Human Head, we were talking about, like that all came out pretty close to what you hear. I mean, I recorded the guitars better and I did this, but generally speaking, the concept, and I fear thinking about it too much. Like I don't want to analyze it because I'm afraid it'll go away. Like it's this weird thing where I can write in these chunks of, the music comes to me, the melody comes to me, all generally at one time. So it's not like I sit down. I mean, in the case of a song like Flying Monkeys, that riff, I just came in. I was like, that's just the first thing that popped in my head. It just reminded me of this childhood fear I had of the Wizard of Oz, those monkeys, the flying monkeys from the Wizard of Oz. When I was a little kid, I remember seeing those flying monkeys and being like,
Okay.
that was the most horrifying thing. And for some reason, that riff just triggered a picture,
Okay.
and then the song took off from there.
Okay. So because you are also a bear sedative, so no animal were harmed during
No, 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 no. And it was before that movie Cocaine Bear too. So I mean, I was way ahead of.
Okay. So and what about the artwork of the album? Who did it?
The same collaborator is Robert Merrick,
Okay.
who is just a genius in my opinion. It's like you spend your whole life, being on record labels and having to sit in these meetings, and someone comes in with like, we'll get two girls in a bikini and a hot air balloon, and it'll be your cover, and you're just like, oh no. So I've always had this kind of hate relationship with artists when it comes to my record. I never felt like they understood what I was trying to do, and I never felt like the records looked like what was in on them, until I met Robert, and he is literally like the you know the the band member of artists. Like I mean, he brings to life the records. I don't think the record process of opening it up, we'll have double vinyl and all. It's just such a huge part of the whole process, that he's contributed to, and he's just a genius.
And as the same for the musician, you let him doing his own thing, or you have some direction, or how it works?
We collaborate, so we talk about like, what about this, what about that, and
Hmm.
what are you hearing with this, and then this had gone through a couple of iterations, of just ideas we bounced around. And, strangely enough, he's already made the cover for the next record because he found like this. We love that character that it almost has a steampunk vintage kind of theme going through it. And without giving too much away, we've decided to, much like the 1899. I don't know if you saw that on Netflix.
Hmm.
So the next record will go somewhere completely different, but kind of keep some of these same elements. And so that's really exciting because now I have to make music to live up to what he's doing. I'm almost chasing him, uh, to keep up. So
Okay. So you have many talents, musician, singer, a producer, etc. And I saw on Facebook that you had a certain talent to create posters, the ones with Jeff Scotto.
oh yeah.
Uh, so why don't you create your own artwork album?
We've talked. That's also Robert Merrick does all the
Oh,
photos.
okay.
It's created so many funny things he's done.
Thought it
And
was
because
you.
no, but it's so everyone thinks, but it's like so funny. He did one of me on top of some ripped like musician, like abs and like no shirt on, and like even like my wife's friends at work were like coming out to the car to like check me out and like, whoa, he must be super hot or something like that. Like, people don't realize it's all Photoshop. And I was doing this project. The best thing was I was doing this project with one of my heroes, Jonathan Mover, drummer, and Michael Sadler, who's the singer from Saga.
Yeah.
And I was working with him. So we were getting together, and his wife, Michael's wife, went online and looked and saw that photo and started yelling at him about, like, you got to get in shape because you can't be in a band like with a guy that looks like that. You know, you have to. So he joined like CrossFit and is like on
Really?
these for like 6 weeks before. And we showed up at rehearsal. He's like, I'm gonna kill you.
That's fun. Okay. So as I said, you're also a producer. Are there any young artists you recently discovered and that you'd like to work or to produce?
Wow. I mean, it's such a great. I mean, there's so many bands right now that have so much talent. Like, I think more so than ever before. Like, I mean, even just, and they're not new, but even Haken, their new record, I think, is just brilliant. And and again, new to me, but like, I just discovered Opeth in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And like, I'd heard the name, and you know how it is now. You just have so much stuff gets sent. By the time, and I was like, this is like one of the greatest bands on the planet. How could I miss this? But I don't know that I would think of it in the sense of like, oh, I should produce, or I should collaborate with. As much as I think I pull from them inspiration. Stephen Wilson's done a ton of great stuff, and Porky Country's done it's great, and Devin we talked about already, and Gojira I think has done so much. They're the most interesting. Like, I mean, I kind of get bored when the vocals aren't good, or not, when it's all screamy. Like, I mean, not to denigrate. I mean, do it and have, it's all awesome. But for me, like, they were the first band to really get it right, where it's aggressive and heavy, but there's a melody in there, and they're still cutting edge, and obviously great musicians. And yeah, so I think it's a super fertile time for music. But for me, like, I don't know, it would depend. I'd have to meet somebody and feel like I could contribute. It's not like I hear those records and I go, you know what they could have done. I hear them as a fan and just like, those are great records.
Okay. Okay. And what about touring? We will have the chance to see you in France.
I am yelling at Olivier every day to make that happen. Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping to do it. I mean, the only thing that's been important to me is I didn't want to, not that the records have to be big or it's a spectacle, but I want to bring these records to life in the way that they deserve to be brought to life. So I didn't want to just like show up opening on a bill in front of two people and throw up there for 10 minutes and everything's kind of, I want to make sure that they're presented. There's a lot to them and there's a lot went into them, and I want to kind of bring them to life in that way. And that's complicated more so than ever before now. So we're looking at options towards the end of the year and the beginning of next year, and hopefully in the festival season. So yeah, I'd love to make it happen. It's been way too long since I've been to France.
Yeah. Okay. So we will cross fingers to see you, and we will wait for the new album. So Postcards from the Asylum, which will be released on the 14th of April in CD and digital, and in July this summer in vinyl. So
Yes, ma'am.
thank you very much for this interview.
Oh, thank you very much for taking the time.
And I hope to see you soon.
Absolutely. Be well. Thank you.